Hi, good morning. This is Faith Kathleen Salinas, and for today, I'll be having my teaching demonstration for junior high school, and I choose the topic the properties of parallelogram. So, before anything else, let me present first my semi detailed lesson plan. Here it is. Alright, so with my lesson plan, this follows the required format, which is the 4 A's. So I have here the learning outcomes, the objectives. So I have three objectives for today. So first is to determine the properties of parallelogram. Next is to solve problems regarding parallelogram and its properties. And lastly is to demonstrate industry and cooperation regarding this topic. So this will be the objectives that the students needs to follow or needs to achieve by the end of the lesson. Alright, and next is I have here for the first part of the lesson, which will be the daily routine, the prayer, the checking of the attendance, and yep, that's it. And next is I'll be having my activity or the motivation part, which I'll be letting the students draw a polygon or a quadrilateral with two parallel sides to start off the topic. Next is we will be doing the activities wherein I will let the students or one of the students to measure the sides which the previous student draw on the board or in front, and then we will be discussing regarding this measurements that will lead to introducing them the properties of parallelogram. And after that one, I will test on how far they understand the topic by doing an activity and the evaluation part. And to end the class is I'll be providing them their assignments. All right, so that's all about my lesson plan. So I'll be starting off the class. All right. Good morning, class. Let's all stand for the prayer. Who's assigned for today? Yes, please go ahead and let's all stand for the prayer. Amen. Okay. Now this time, Abby, can you please check the attendance, please? Who's absent for today? Wonderful. Oh, perfect attendance. That's great to hear. So, how are you today, class? Okay. All right. So, um, for today, we will be learning another topic. But before that one, let's start with what did we did yesterday? Let's have some short recap first. Yes, Joseph. Oh, yes, perfect. Okay, so yesterday we learned about triangles and have an introduction about quadrilaterals as well. So for today, we will be talking about another type of quadrilateral. And to start off, who would like to go here in front and draw two or draw a quadrilateral with two parallel sides? Okay, but before that, let me present to you first your objective. Okay, everyone, please read. Okay, perfect. Now, before we end this class, we would like you to determine the properties of parallelogram, since that is our topic for today. And also, you will be solving problems regarding parallelogram and its properties. And lastly, demonstrate industry and cooperation regarding the topic. Since you will be working as a class, and I want you to have cooperation with each other as well in order for you to learn the topic. Okay? All right. So, again, I would like to go here in front and draw a quadrilateral with two parallel sides. Yes, Alan. All right, let's wait for Alan to draw on here on in front. Okay, thank you so much, Alan. So this is the polygon or the quadrilateral with two parallel sides. Let's say this is point G, this is point I, this is point V, and this is point E. Okay, so with this illustration, or with this polygon that Alan draw, which are the opposite sides? Yes, Desiree. Exactly. So that is the sides GI opposite to the line EV, or the side EV. And the second one is the side GE that is opposite to the side IV. Perfect. Now, this time, name the opposite angles. Yes, Debbie. Correct. So the opposite angles here are angle G opposite to angle V, and angle I opposite to angle E. Yes, angle E. Correct. All right. Now this time I want you to, I'm sorry. Now this time I want you to identify the diagonals. All right. Hold on. Okay. Now I want you to identify the diagonals. What are the diagonals? Yes, Alden. Correct. So that will be diagonals G, or from point G going to the opposite angle V, that forms diagonal GV, and the other one is from point I going to point E, making it as a diagonal IE. Correct. All right. Now take note that these two diagonals intersect at a certain point. Now let's say this is point S. Okay. Very good. Thank you so much. Now let's make use of the same illustration or same polygon that Alan drew earlier. Okay. Now this time, who would like to go here in front? Bring your ruler and your compass to measure the opposite sides. Volunteer? Okay, Alger. Can you please measure the opposite sides first using your ruler? Okay, but by the way, while Alger is measuring the two opposite sides, what polygon was shown here in front? Very good. This is what we call as a parallelogram. So we will be discussing, or we will be knowing what is parallelogram and how come this illustration or this figure is a parallelogram. Okay. All right. So I think Alger already got the measurement of the opposite sides. Okay. Now, how about Alger? Can you please measure the opposite angles? The GV and IE. Angle G and angle V, as well as angle I and angle E. Using your compass this time. And while Alger is measuring the angles, you can also try it on your seat with the parallelogram that you draw. Okay. Now, how about, can you please measure the diagonals, Alger? All right, perfect. Now let's call another student. Now I want you to measure the line segment GS and the line segment SV this time. Yes, how about you, Amy? Please bring your ruler. Okay, thank you. Now, can you also please measure the line segment ES and the line segment IS? Okay, perfect. Now, how about yes, you, Raymark. Can you also please measure the consecutive angles? Okay, wow. All right. Okay, thank you so much. So please take note all those measurements, class. Okay. So we have here the measurements that provided to us by Alger. So again, what are the measures of the opposite sides in this figure? Right, so we have here the line segment GI, which has the opposite for the line segment EV, has the same measurement, which is both 8.36 centimeter, correct? Now, how about the other opposite sides? So we have the sides GE and the sides IV, which is opposite or which are opposites to each other, has the same measurement, which is 4.56 centimeter, correct? All right. Now, with this one, how many pairs of opposites sides are equal that you can see on this figure? Exactly. So we have two pairs of opposite sides. Now let's have the angles that also Alger measures earlier, the opposite angles. So we have angle G is 76 degrees and angle V is also 76 degrees. And we have angle I opposite to angle E, which both has the same measurement, which is 104 degrees. Perfect. All right, now take note. Opposite angles are equal, correct? Same as the opposite sides that are equal. So, with this figure as well, how many opposite angles are equal? Correct. We have two opposite angles that are equal. Perfect. All right. Now this time, I want you. What is the measure or measurement of the consecutive angles? Okay. So as you can see, if we add two consecutive angles, that's a total of 180 degrees. G, angle G plus angle I, which are two consecutive angles, has a total of 180 degrees. So as angle I plus angle V plus angle E, and angle E plus angle G. So take note, if you add two consecutive angles, that's a total of 180 degrees, correct? All right. Now let's have the diagonals this time. What are the measures of each diagonals? We have 9.52 centimeter as well as 9.52 centimeter. So are they equal? Correct. So diagonals of a parallelogram are equal. Okay. So with this one, what is a when is a given quadrilateral a parallelogram? Yes, Mark. Very good. So with the measurements that you had earlier, that's how we can say that a given quadrilateral is a parallelogram. All right. Now let's learn more about that one by introducing to you or by knowing what are the properties of parallelogram. But before that one, class, do you have questions so far? Okay. Thank you. Now, with Mark mentioned earlier on how or when the given quadrilateral is a parallelogram, can you also say that squares and rectangles also a parallelogram? Yes. Why do you think so? Yes, you, Julia. Okay, perfect. That is because they have the same properties. Okay, and I think you already know the properties of parallelogram, but let's see if you really understand the given um, measurements and illustrations. Okay, now who among you here can tell me what, based on the measurements that we had earlier, who among you can tell me the properties of a parallelogram? I'll be providing you keywords for that. Opposite sides. Based on opposite sides, what can you formulate? What is a property? What is the properties of parallelogram using opposite sides? Yes, Marco. Okay. How about opposite angles? Diane. All right. How about consecutive angles? Kyle. Okay. And lastly, diagonals. Yes, you, Alan, again. All right. Perfect. So I think you already understood. Okay. Now, with this given illustration that we had earlier, we come up with the properties of parallelogram. So we actually have 6 properties of parallelogram. First, based from the opposite sides. So opposite sides of parallelogram is parallel. All right? And opposite angles are congruent or equal. Correct. Third is opposite angles. The second is opposite sides are congruent, not just parallel. And third, opposite angles are congruent. Fourth, based from consecutive angles are supplementary. So as what we had earlier, that if we add consecutive angles, that's a sum of 180 degrees. So that makes it supplementary, correct? All right. And next is the diagonals of a parallelogram bisect each other. That's why the diagonals of a parallelogram are equal, and bisect meaning it divides it into 2 equal parts, right? So as you can remember that the line segments SI and the line segment SE are just equal, since diagonal GV bisect this diagonal. All right, So it divides it into two equal parts. And lastly, each diagonals of a parallelogram separates it into two congruent triangles. So if we take a look with diagonal GV, so it separates it into a two congruent triangles, right? Okay. So do you have some questions with this with the properties of parallelogram? None, right? So it's easy. So you just have to understand or remember the properties of parallelogram. Okay. Now to test your understanding, if you really was able to understand the properties, I want you to get one half sheet of paper and answer this following. So I want you to, given this illustration, I want you to answer four of the questions and state the properties of parallelogram that applies to it. Okay, I'll give you 5 minutes to do that. Okay, time's up. Oh, wow. So you really understand already. So let's answer number one here. What properties of parallelogram applies for number one? Correct. So we can have property number two, which is opposite sides are congruent. So Li is congruent to In and Le is congruent to In. Very good. How about the second one? Yes, we can use the third property, which is opposite angles are congruent, such as angle L is congruent to angle N, and angle E is congruent to angle I. Correct. The third one, alright, so we can use the property which is the diagonals bisect each other into two equal parts. Yes, correct. Such as LS is congruent to SN and ES is congruent to SI. And lastly, S is the midpoint of LN and IE. Alright, very good. That's the property that we can use. Okay, now since you already understand, please answer this one as well. So this will be your evaluation for the topic that we have for today. Okay, so I'll give you 15 minutes to answer. No copying, okay? Okay, time's up. Pass your paper. Alright, and please copy your assignment for tomorrow. Please write it down in a 1/4 sheet of paper, okay? Alright, so do you have questions so far, class, before we end our topic for today? So that I can dismiss you now. Oh, none so far. Okay. So I hope you really understand the topic, and let's have a recap for this one by tomorrow, okay? Please stand up for the prayer. Okay, thank you so much for today, class, and goodbye.